Hello and welcome to Quartzlight, your car brochure channel, and today's episode, the Citroen Ami. Welcome back, and if you're new to the channel, where at Quartzlight we look at car brochures from around the world on YouTube. If you think that might interest you, please watch the video and consider subscribing. Anyway, back to today's episode, the Citroen Ami. No, not the electric version, but the original. So let's have a look at that brochure now. So here we go, today's brochure, or should I say brochures. We've got two up here for the Citroen Ami. Similar dates actually, 1973, 1974. The difference and why we're looking at two brochures. This is the English version. This is actually a French version, so French text in there. And it shows two versions of the Ami. The Ami 8, which had a 602cc flat 2, and also the Ami Super, which had a 1015cc flat 4 from a Citroen GS. There was also the Ami 6. It's not shown here, but we may just talk about how it differs from the Ami 6 when we go into the brochure. Always really liked the original Ami, much more than this electric version. I don't mind the idea of this electric version, but I'm always much preferred this true Ami. Ami incidentally meaning friend in French. First introduced in 1961, ran all the way till 1978, so a really long run, wasn't it? And kind of like think about the Citroen Ami really as like a rebodied 2CV really, with some mechanical upgrades. But I really like the front end. It's very French, it's very Citroen, and I always love low powered French cars, in particular low powered Citroen, so it's right up there with one of my favourite cars. But anyway, let's open the brochure up and see what we can see inside. So this is the brochure opened up. This is actually the English version. It's saying at the top here, Ami Super, Ami 8, top value motoring with performance and comfort. And kind of like if you look at this sort of chassis and suspension version, you know, really think 2CV. We're going to have a look at some of this text. We're not going to read it all because it's quite a wordy brochure, even though it's only a short brochure, but we'll try and pick some key points out. First of all, it starts talking about the larger engine version, the Ami Super. It says the Ami Super is a real driver's car with a performance equivalent to that of cars of a much higher price. It's also a car built for the family. Genuinely spacious, amazingly comfortable, easy to park and manoeuvre. Its cost by any standards is low and the expense of running are very reasonable. Advanced Citroen motoring at budget cost. This is the promise, and the Ami Super more than lives up to it. Then it starts talking about this GS engine, performance, the famous GS engine. This is the engine which powers the Ami Super, the famous Citroen GS 1015cc light alloy air-cooled engine. Praised by its automotive experts as an outstanding design. It has been proved over millions of miles in the Citroen GS, winner of 7 Car of the Year awards in different countries. And then it starts talking a little bit about the engine, etc, etc. And there is a little image of the engine and gearbox. It says the engine makes the Ami Super a superb motorway car. At 70 miles per hour, you're gently or cruising gently, even with 5 people and luggage, using only a fraction of the engine's potential. Maximum speed 87 miles per hour. Gearbox synchromesh on all forward gears. And then it talks a little bit about the different versions. So the Ami Super saloons, estate cars and vans. Yes, there was even a van version as well. And then there we have it, the Ami 8. In some ways my favourite because it's got that little 602cc air-cooled engine. So it says, for drivers who rate low-cost motoring economy before performance, the Ami range is completed by the renowned Ami 8 series. These models have the popular 35 bhp SAE 602cc air-cooled Citroen engine. Details of the Ami 8 are on the back of the leaflet. Yeah, there's some specifications which we'll have a look at later. I guess we should really look at this little bit of a page. It is quite interesting. It says the advanced features. The Ami Super gives you a sophisticated Citroen motoring at a budget price. The stripped down Ami Super highlights some of the advanced automotive features. You know, I'm sure Citroen 2CV owners would, you know, recognise a lot of this sort of setup, particularly this, you know, this suspension setup, giving a very comfortable ride, and these very sort of 2CV tyres, which I'm sure are familiar to a lot of 2CV owners, and these, you know, 2CV wheels in effect. And then we get some lovely pictures, don't we? And you can kind of like see that sort of like very 2CV-esque. You can imagine how soft that suspension is, although particularly in the estate form, a much more practical vehicle. But I do love the style, and particularly on the estate, how it kind of like curves back and up. I just, you know, it's just a lovely looking car. And of course this saloon version as well. It is an attractive car. Now, when we were talking about the Ami 6, the Ami 6 didn't really drop off like this. The Ami 6, think sort of Ford Anglia, I guess. It actually had a raked window that went the opposite way there. It's not shown in this brochure though, but maybe we should at some point have a look at the Ami or Ami 6 at some point. Anyway, let's have a look at the next page. So there we go, and then we have a look on the inside. A very basic interior. Differs a little bit from a 2CV though, doesn't it? Because it looks like the gear lever is in a more regular spot, but still got this sort of like strange, which I presume is the handbrake. But if we zoom in, I do particularly like the details on it though. This lovely speedo and these sort of like little red lights down the side there, and that sort of very 2CV-esque steering wheel. It's overall a very simple but obviously very effective looking interior. And then if we look down, a better look at that sort of gear lever and handbrake. You know, you would kind of like think it would be more 2CV with the sort of gear lever popping out, but it doesn't look like it's the case on the little Ami. And then we get the technical data, so we'll have a little bit of a zoom in on that. So starting off with the higher model, the Ami Super Saloon, with that 1015cc flat 4 that was used on the GS as well. 61 brake horsepower by the looks of it. Transmission, front wheel drive, 4-speed all synchromesh, so a little bit better than a 2CV. 2CV wasn't all synchromesh. I seem to remember first gear was not a synchromesh on there. A little bit of detail about the suspension, steering, brake system, etc, etc. I'm not going to read through all of that, but of course if you want to pause the screen you can do. Going quickly down to the optional equipment, looks like we've got a separate recline front seats, heated rear window, metallic paint and jersey upholstery, all as optional equipment. Think about that recline front seats. I think the standard model just had like a bench seat actually. And then finally at the bottom it starts talking about your manufacturer's towing capacity. You know, I won't tow too much, I wouldn't have thought, but there's also information there about the what we've got, mechanical specifications for the Ami Super Saloon. So I was talking about them options again, and then finally it gives a little bit of information about this 3-door van version that you could get. As seen here, the van version looks very nice actually, the van at the back. Never seen that service van before though. Oh, okay, sorry for confusing everyone. I guess this information here is actually referring to the estate version. So that's the specifications for the estate version. So your options are reclined front seats, heated rear window, metallic paint for the estate. And then this is your service van, like we mentioned previously. And then up the top there we've got that Ami 8 Comfort, or Comfort as it says. I used to always call it a Comfort, but it's actually Comfort. 602 cc's, so that very small little engine. Like I say, still synchromesh on all forward gears, and a bit of information about the suspension, steering, etc. Optional equipment on this model, the jersey upholstery. Still gives us a towing capacity even on this very low powered version. And then this information here is referring to that estate version. So yes, you could get that very basic Ami 8 with the 602 cc engine on the estate as well, and indeed you could even get it on that 3-door van version. Okay, so here it is, the French version of the Ami 8, showing a little bit of an Ami 8 coming towards us, a bit of a speedy blurred shot. Don't adjust your camera. And then we'll turn over. Actually, the French brochure is a lot nicer, to be honest with you, particularly like these sort of yellow headlamps shown on this version. This version's got 2 rear view mirrors, although later on we'll see most of them have just got 1. Showing the 2 models again, the Ami 8, the Ami Super. We'll turn the page for this great shot, first with this lovely brown one, very 70s colour again with these yellow lights. Just 1 rear view mirror here. Interesting, this one, I kind of like hope it's the Super because it's towing a caravan by the looks of it, so even a struggle for that little Super I would imagine, but there it is doing a bit of towing. On the next page it's showing that Super version, similar sort of picture that we saw on the British version, similar sort of interior, but of course left-hand drive this time. A nice little cutaway shot there, very unusual orange wheels on this one though. If we turn the page again, we get the more basic version, the Ami 8 with that 602 cc engine. I like this image because it's showing how the boot opens, because it does look like a hatchback, but it's not. It's got a boot, but still quite a big boot nevertheless. One thing, I've just zoomed in on this dashboard, one thing to note, this is the Ami 8, the one with the 602 cc engine. We noticed we have got that 2CV style gear change, so it looks like the Super with the larger engine had that floor change. The 602 is more 2CV-esque with this umbrella handbrake and the gear shift up the front there, so that's interesting. And then it gives us this lovely image of the seats. They really do look very comfortable seats. I always remember driving a 2CV and they were very comfortable seats. These look even nicer. We even get a matching coloured door card. I seem to remember at one time they advertised that you could lift these seats out, use them as a picnic seat. I think 2CV practicality again. And then going by the theory that, you know, your Super version has your floor mounted shift. This is going to be the Super. No floor mounted shift here, so that's going to be your basic 8. And then they are having a picnic. Unfortunately, they haven't lifted those seats out, sadly, but they have brought their pet bird. So, you know, if you get the estate version, there's even room to bring your bird along with you. So, you know, great. Brakes is kind of like what they refer to as the estate version. and then your specifications. I can't read French, but I'm sure it's going to follow the same information as the English version. We will have a look at this little table, because it kind of like shows you a little bit the different versions a bit better on there. Okay, so it starts talking at the top there for the Ami 8. It's available as in the Berlin Comfort, which would have been the most basic one, I'm assuming now actually. I always thought that the most basic one was called Lux, but you know, I think they changed them around a bit. The middle model is the Club. You can only get that with the Super though, if you look on there. So the Comfort, oh, there's just two models in this, I do apologise. So yeah, either Comfort or Club. So that makes sense, because I think they were a more basic Lux version at one time as well, which makes sense, but you couldn't get that Club version in the Super. So a bit more equipment on the Super Club. We've also got the brake, available both as the 8 and the Super, as we've seen. Also that service van, which we could get as an 8 or a Super. So there we go, that is the little Ami, and like I say, I much prefer it towards the new electric one, although the new electric one is a little bit interesting. It's one of them cars, kind of like wish it didn't have the Ami name, because this is the Ami I know and love. Thank you so much for watching Quarter Light today. Please do share your comments, like and subscribe. We'll see you very soon. Take care and goodbye.